do, I will turn the floor over to JB, one of our esteemed training and dissemination project leaders, to introduce the November webinar.
Thanks, Dave. And really, the training thing is as much you as me and others. So it's a shared project or shared task for sure. Also shared pleasure, especially when it comes to welcoming Johanna. Johanna has been not only a ReproNIm fellow, but also she's a TA now for she was a Repro Rehab, I think, a learner, and then a TA at a Repro Rehab. I think she's done all the ReproNIm things. I think in short, she's very heavily involved now in the inventory, the ReproInventory project, which is trying to get material for training a little bit more organized and more labeled with appropriate keywords and things, and therefore searchable. So the findability of those things. In general, if you look at her GitHub page, which I just looked at, 5 minutes ago, it's kind of amazing how many projects you've been, involved in, but it's easy, I guess, to get involved in many projects. I know that, but it's hard to actually contribute properly to many of those. I think that you check that box, Joanna. So I think it's great. She's actually at the moment with Andre Marquand in doing a lot of PNC and normative modeling aspects. Had a very cool talk last OHBM on the longitudinal aspect of normative modeling. Hopefully we'll see Johanna more in Montreal soon. So that's a very great pleasure to welcome you, Johanna, and take it.
Yeah, thank you for the lovely introduction, JB. Yeah, my GitHub is busy. I'm involved in a lot of things, but you can also just fork repositories, right? So it's not all my own repositories, but yeah, I do a lot of things. And it's a pleasure to be part of this project. And so this is meant to be like a very short overview what we've done in the last 2 years, pretty much on this project. And it's also a reflection of, great teamwork, I would say, and the results that you can get from the hackathons at OHBM. So I hope you can see my screen. No, that's not what I wanted. Share my slides. Yeah, so I'm going to present the ReproInventory, and Dave gave it like this label Yazitur, yet another searchable index of training resources, which is what it's meant to be. So kind of the background is that at some point in our career, we are all kind of faced with the task to teach in neuroscience, neuroimaging, and beyond. And we all know that there are training material on the internet. We don't really know yet about the quality of those. We assume they're excellent, but we're not sure. But we also often don't have really the time to check, are they good? Are they what we are looking for? And at the same time, we don't have the time to create our own. So this is kind of the problem that we're facing often, is that we want to teach a desired topic, but we're not sure how to navigate all the content that we can find or adapt it as needed, and how can we do that without having to start from scratch. And like example queries or like questions that someone who is faced with this task could have are, for example, I would like to find a 1-hour lecture to introduce GitHub to novice first year graduates in my graduate students in my Introduction to Computational Neuroscience course. I would like to find a 1-hour multi-shell diffusion MRI course video. I would like to know whether the course depends on some installation requirements or prerequisite other than skill level. I would like to find a course on Python that preps my undergraduate students for my neuroimaging with Python class. I would like to find a 1-day workshop on Introduction to Reproducible Neuroimaging to provide to my lab for 20 members who range from RA, data collection, data analysis, to clinical investigators. Or can I find a hands-on tutorial for bits conversion of my DICOM data? So kind of faced with this problem statement, we try to formulate a solution statement So we were or are aiming to create a ReproNIm inventory of training resources to help find what's out there so that users can more efficiently identify, reuse, and adapt existing resources instead of always starting from scratch. And we are aware that we're not the first and the only ones doing this, which is also kind of part of our aim. So we know that there's, for example, the ReproNIm training resources, and then also the ReproNIm fellowship, where the fellows create resources every year, and a lot of other repositories that are excellent. But like part of this ReproInventory aim is also basically to be an umbrella resource, an umbrella repository for all these resources. So basically a resource linking to more resources. Yeah. So when we started with this project, we were kind of faced with three with tasks, and we were able to structure them in like more three broader categories. So the first one was reviewing all the existing inventories and the content that is out there. The second one was related more to sorting, classifying, and evaluating what is out there. So, for example, for each resource, what do we want to know about it? What would a user want to know about it? And then also, like, maybe can we set up a schema, or we need to find some way to classify these resources so that others can basically browse them. At the same time, we were also aiming to go through these resources and see if there's anything missing and we can add something. Yeah. And then last but not least, we also needed to find a good way of displaying and preparing this content for other users to browse. And ideally, like something like would be like in our website with, for example, a front end, how the content is displayed, and then associated back end to store the information. But yeah, you can see that these tasks are basically they're based on each other, and we had to go through all three of them. Yeah, and then also like for the displaying is like we were asking this question like what would users really want to see? Like what would they like to browse the repository by? Would it be by topic or by format or by level or by duration? And we were also looking into are there any other platforms out there that could show us how we could do this the best way. So the project evolved over two brain hacks. There was the brain hack in Korea 2 years ago, and then the brain hack in Australia that just ended basically. And so in Korea, we started with the project and we started with reviewing existing inventories and expand the context. So what resources are missing? And like I said, we identified basically a schema. So we kind of decided upon several categories that we wanted to classify the resources into. And we also started to manually label the resources in a Google Sheet. And this is basically what it looks like. You can probably see that this was actually a lot of work. You see here like the resources, and then we started here to have these adding these columns, and then you could in the columns we had like labels that you could select from, and this is like yeah, I would say intermediate intermediately complex Google Sheet. So it has like these macro kind of rules. Yeah, but and this is the issue for the brain hack that we had in Korea. Yeah, and then between Korea and Australia, we actually it took us 1 year to label all these resources, and it was very slow because yeah, people were busy, and like it's also a very tedious task. So you basically have to go through the resources, and some of them are, you know, it's like a week-long course. You have to go through the content and kind of decide where it falls, like which label applies for each of these around 25 categories that or columns that we decided upon. But we still made progress. So then we reunited in Australia, and we kind of decided to take all of this a step further because we thought like this Google Sheet that we have is really nice, but it's not very usable, and like you cannot really browse it, and it's mainly for displaying what we have. But yeah, it also became quite long, so we decided we have to take this a level further. So the first thing that we actually did with a couple of more people that were very skilled in programming, we built a comprehensive metadata schema using LinkML. So LinkML is a flexible modeling language that allows to author schemas in YAML that describe the structure of the data. So we basically created like a metadata dictionary. And then we converted the Google Sheet and captured around 25 attributes for each training resource, including technical specifications, the programming language, neuroimaging software platforms, educational metadata, so skill level, prerequisites, assessment availability. And then we also decided it would be nice to actually have like a kind of more like dimensional way of classifying our training resources. So maybe like a quadrant of like applied or like a theory-based kind of along the 2 dimensions. So that would be basically tutorials, how-to guides. So the one here very theoretical, and then how-to, and then explanations and reference materials. I can show you that later. But and that's also still in the working, but it would be a way to more like visualize where a training resource lies instead of just having. So this is the schema that we created. And then we also created a data processing pipeline because we decided to basically disable the Google Sheet or not use the Google Sheet anymore. And we implemented an automated workflow for converting the data from the TSV that was extracted from the Google Sheet into YAML and then to JSON. And the JSON is basically the backend of the web page that I'm going to show you in a second. And then we had help from a very skilled programmer in Melbourne, Brisbane, Tui, and she created a React frontend for us. So she created like a default version of it, and then we used that and adapted it during the brain hack, and we plugged in the JSON file at the SD backend. We also added a default data entry function, which is pretty much, it doesn't work yet. It's just, you can open it, but it doesn't work yet because we don't really have a database yet. But we were able to deactivate the Google Sheet. And like the overall Outlook aim is to allow entries to the database via the React frontend. And then also this brain hack was a bit of an experimental approach using mini clients. So we were trying, like Satra was trying to see how far we can push this using AI. So we used that also to adapt the default React frontend that TUI gave us. And so we actually put mini client as one of our members on our member list. This is a screenshot of what it looks like. I think it's pretty impressive. Like, it's very pretty. You have these cards here, and they describe a training resource. I can also show you the live website in a second, but you can also filter here what you're looking for. I'll show you that in a second. So before I show you the website, the next steps are going to be that we want to actually add a way to add new entries via the React frontend. So via the website. At the moment, we can only add them via the JSON file on the GitHub. The first option would be to have like something where you can, I'll show you that in a second. Okay, I can edit like a card on the React frontend, but that would require a complete restructuring of the app as it is, and also creating like a real database, and not only a JSON file at the back end. And we're not sure whether that's worth it for now, because we really want people to use it as soon as possible. The second option would be something like the way you submit projects to BrainHack. So you have a button on a website, but then you get redirected to a GitHub issue, and you fill that in with the relevant information, and then that could create a pull request against the JSON that we have on the GitHub, pretty much. But that would require users to have a GitHub account, or anyone wants to add something. The third way would be having a Google form somewhere front facing, and people add the information there. And then there could be some GitHub action in the backend that maybe creates a JSON from the Google form, and again creates a pull request against the JSON file that we have in the backend, which would probably require some manual editing and approval from one of us. So then let me go there. So yeah, this is what it looks like. Unfortunately, it overlaps here, but if your screen is too small, I can also put this in the chat maybe if you want to have a look yourself. Oh, sorry. Oh no, I have to go out here. Copy. Find the chat. So here you can see, you can, for example, here view the data. So there's the JSON file, but that's not so interesting. You see all the keywords here that we have in the backends. You can access the material, so then you get redirected to the course or to whatever the training resource is. And then most importantly, you can actually filter stuff here. So for example, in structure based or based on the level that you're looking for. And then we have these kind of quadrants that I would really like to visualize them because they're basically polar opposites of each other. But it would basically be like a quadrant, and you would see where the resource lies within this quadrant. Yeah, I think, yeah, then exactly. So the edit function here that you see here, this is doesn't work yet. So you can change stuff, but it doesn't save yet because we don't have a real backend. But like, yeah, that would be one option would be to further develop this function here to edit the JSON or like the backend. Yeah. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We want help with respect to maybe a discussion what would be most useful for the data submission. Then we need more data, so more courses. And we would also really value your feedback if you use it, what you think is useful and whatnot. And this is the team. Let me go back to screen share actually, the slideshow. This is the team. You can also see that we have really excellent Photoshop skills here. That is amazing. Yeah, but I think that's it from my side. Yeah, if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Great, thank you. I'll remind everyone that you can't unmute unless we let you unmute, so raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question. I'll take a host prerogative question for Johanna or the team. The human manual entry, at least, is, as you mentioned, a time-consuming task. The opportunity to have AI agents and things as agentic frameworks begin to get more powerful, that perhaps what do you think about the prognosis of sending a agent to a course URL and having it return at least a draft of what the resource would look like, and that would hopefully lower the barrier to curation of content?
Yeah, I totally agree. I do definitely like the use of AI at the last hackathon has sped up things a lot. Like just from my perspective, I'm a bit, if it works, it's fine. But like now I see also like with this React database that we have, like I have a really hard time sometimes understanding what has been done. So that's always the downside, right? Like you have something write something for you, but then maintaining it, if you can't do it yourself, you're a bit screwed. So I think we should try it just for the fun of it, and it would help a lot. But also we need to make sure that we stay on top of what it's been done so that we can maintain it.
Yeah, I would definitely, we have to keep the human in the loop in that case, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, and the challenge is to make it easier to review a pre-guess as opposed to
Yeah.
creating
Yeah.
the thing de novo. And I think that's a
Yeah.
challenging question, if
Yeah.
that can actually save time or not. And I guess that's an experiment.
Yeah.
JB has his hand up and he's probably able to unmute himself. Okay.
I think I can. Can you hear me? Yeah. Cool. Plenty of questions. Fascinating how, like an idea of like a year and a half went, actually came up to something that is actually almost usable, I think usable now. That's quite
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Um, a couple of things that, spring in my mind. You listed a list of, I mean, a list of things that are resembling or possibly in this area things. Um, the training space is definitely something possibly that resembles the most with the maybe the Pro Rehab aspect, but like training space. And do you have any thoughts or plan or like ideas on how to uh, either ingest, either push? I mean, what should be in your mind the relationship between those things? I mean, is there any way of like making not having two projects that try to do the same things and consolidate each other in some ways? Is there any idea on that, which is not an easy question.
Yeah, I agree. I've been thinking about like also what is the, what is the unique value of the Repro inventory, and I do think at the moment it would be definitely that we put a lot of hours into actually evaluating the stuff and like looking, is it useful? I think that could still be like the, the
Mm.
benefit, or like the fact that we have thought about what's, would someone exactly in our position actually, how would they approach this and what would be useful for them, like having all these tags and having all
Mm.
these filter options. I think yeah, but like yeah, you're right, like if, yeah, the question is also like how would you link that? If you just link to like the INCF repositories, that's so useful, like there's a lot of things on there. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe like a quick chat with Matthew there or whoever is
Yeah.
at maybe Ariel, I think was still recently like the chairing the training committee of NCF. Like maybe a quick chat at some stage, maybe at Bordeaux or before, might be interesting to see whether we could collapse those things or like consolidate those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, had another, I mean, a bit a question on this. I mean, I had two other questions. Maybe one is very close to what Dave asked, which is basically how do we incentivize people, or how do we make it easy for, like, for maintaining and increasing the. It's going to be useful only when there's enough material and enough momentum in pushing material there. So I guess the critical question is how do we get there? A bit, or also like a bit more like a sociological question than than anything else. But what do you think? I mean, is there any ideas or thoughts on how to? Um,
Yeah. So I think at the moment the critical point is definitely the editing, like the JSON, or like the, I think, because if we at the moment we need to find a way that it's both easy for them and also for us, because uh I guess like editing a JSON is very easy for example, like an AI, but actually very hard for a human. I try to add stuff manually. It's even harder than adding it to the Google Docs because you have to, you have all these fields and you have to fill them in. It's not very nicely structured for the human eye. So I think like finding a way to inject new data, like I said, that makes it maybe like people insert it in whatever, like put it in whatever, but we have then in the end like a JSON already that we just add to the existing JSON file. That would be an option, for example. The other thing is I think we definitely should list people, like, give people credit, of course, for their course. And also we were thinking of maybe like writing a paper about it. So I think like everybody that contributes to the database should be invited as a co-author, something like that, which is sometimes, I think for, especially for ECRs, having their name on a paper is always an incentive. And we could, of course, promote it also, like maybe, yeah, tweet about certain courses that are on there, or like, something like that. Yeah.
Sounds like an OHBM abstract to submit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for example. Yeah.
From the chat, Yarek brought up the topic of feeding repro inventory into a notebook LLM, for example, and Michelle chimed in on that thread that Brent has been doing some notebook LLM for technical docs. I don't know if
I
Michelle
love.
wants to unmute and or ask to be unmuted and to say anything about that, or is that enough of a leading question for Johanna herself? Michelle, there you go. I will permit you now to unmute.
Yeah, so
Oh, Michelle.
we're on the same computer, so that was
Okay.
Brent talking through Michelle's ID. Yeah, so I've had really good luck with Notebook LM for just pooling technical docs or kind of Git tutorials and questions or GitHub problems I've run into and had to Google. And when I solve it, if I just add that link to the LM, it basically crawls through that, and then I can come back to it to ask other related questions as they come up. So for things like Git or Docker containers, or one of the nicer ones has been Compute Canada, you basically add the static pages or YouTube videos, or it can even parse slides to a certain extent. So it's been very good because those are a very easy to share and link resource that you can kind of just chat with to get answers. So it's one of those you can very readily use the documentation as kind of a search feature instead of, you know, generating and curating a big book of documentation that you've then got to, read through. So I've had good luck with it for getting started there.
Yeah, I love Notebook LM, and I've also been using it. And you could even create a podcast about the ReproInventory, right? So have you used the voice generating feature? Like it creates a podcast about your source. It's amazing. Yeah, I've used it. It's such a good idea. Thank you for bringing it up. Yeah, yeah,
And so would a version of that be is find the inventory already has a list of at least one or many links per resource.
yep,
To some
yeah.
extent, you could just feed an LLM with that collection of links, ask, and yes, have our cute, search interface, but also an alternative, just chat with the LLM version and sort of have two ways to interact with
True.
it. If you may or may not, not knowing exactly what you'll get from one, there's sort of both ways that aren't mutually exclusive. So that's presumably relatively low hanging fruit.
So are you saying we should maybe have a chatbot on the website? Like
Well,
that?
yeah, yeah, I'm wondering, especially now that it's been reminded that it's not too hard with the notebook
True.
LLMs to
Yeah,
just use that huge set of links
yeah,
that the inventory itself knows
yeah.
and have, sort of a chatbot to that. Yes.
That would be amazing.
And that's,
Yeah.
again, when I used to think that's a very challenging thing to do. And I guess I'm beginning to think that's less challenging nowadays than it would have used to be.
Yeah. Such good ideas.
That's why we do this. We love the community. Uh, Other folks want to chime in with questions?
I
Maybe,
wonder what people. Oh, sorry. No, go.
yeah, I mean, two things. I was thinking of your, like three possibility things that maybe we should
Yeah.
survey the room again on
Yeah.
that. The second thing, I was vaguely wondering if that's for like, training material. Could we, kind of copy paste that thing for something else, like maybe data sets, maybe like how far could we just mimic that project for like other resources than training material? It's maybe like a opening question.
Ooh. Um, I mean, we have open neural, right, for datasets, kind of, but there's
No,
also other.
I meant a recommendation for
Ah,
the project,
recommendation. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like with
Oh.
appropriate you know metadata at the
Yeah,
usability of an level. Anyways, I
yeah,
was just like
yeah.
brainstorming on maybe that project could also have a
Or
use.
software, like toolboxes,
Yeah.
packages. Yeah,
And I'll chime in a little bit only since Satra's not with us. Amongst the reasons Satra spent, his 3 or 6 hours of hackathon time doing this, yes, he loves the Reaper inventory topic, but again, I think this is one of the types of ideas, these knowledge base, these knowledge graphs being, sort of at the core of content, and then having resources that build the web, accessibility to them. This was an example that, for the training things, but tools and data and other things, I think in the Satra vision of the world would all have, a graph, behind them, like the JSON, and a view on that in these different domains. And they could cross and mix and match, but channeling Satra to some extent, everything is a graph, and we just generate now these views on these graphs. So I
yeah,
think that
or
was kind of his vision as well.
yeah, papers as well. Yep, it's going to be the repro everything.
Repro
Yeah,
everything, graph everything. Nikhil
yeah.
has a question there. Does he want to speak it himself, or should we read it? I'll give Nikhil the opportunity to unmute if he wants, or do you see value difficulty in gathering?
Sorry, it's a bit loud here, so I wasn't
Okay,
sure
good.
if it's going to be noisy for the audience.
So far, so good.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering about the effectiveness of these portals, so to speak. How do we kind of gather how they are being used versus been
Mhm.
successful, almost like a user reviews type of thing? I mean, I'm not even sure how difficult that is, or how do we prevent bots from?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Good point. Also, given that, our previous meeting experience. Yeah, good one. So I guess we could somehow get a like Google. There's like I think Google Analytics or something like where you can at least track traffic on the website. I think it would actually be very helpful because you can use this type of data for grants or whatever, right? To show the resourcefulness or like the traffic on your website. They would. You should talk to TUI about that. Yeah, but you're right. Good point. Like if we allow user at least like pull requests or edit rights, we need to also make sure that it's safe for us and everybody, that it's not cannot be abused or cannot be yeah, bots or whatever. It's a good point. Yeah.
I'll add one thing here is that the vision may not, again, the vision is always, mutable, but an initial vision was not necessarily to collect the random community reviews and comments and ratings, but really to use the Repro fellows, Repro staff, to give a more, sort of a expert reviews and considerations that, we have a little bit more control over those and who the reviewers are and that they're using sort of a good methodology. So it makes it a little bit different than a popularity contest to the world, but more an expert consumer report type of sort of critical feedback. So this community, I don't think, does a great job of reviewing things in general. It's just not things this community does. It's not Zappos. It's not shoes. But we do have, folks who, it is in their interest to potentially spend some time doing those types of reviews, especially if they get, some sort of academic credit for that, doing those reviews as well. So the goal is not so much random people adding content, but getting the staffing of Repro approved folks to help with that, which is still a challenge. But I think the idea was sort of in that direction, at least to start with. And that gives it a different value to other resources is, yes, you get the listing, but you also get a small crowd to do the crowdsourcing of that, a crowd that you trust in some particular domain. So yeah.
Yeah.
And JB, your link is everything is connected. Is that
It's more of a joke. I'm sorry.
an XKCD? No.
No, it's a series that it's the Holistic Detective Agency. It's if you haven't seen it, it's the first version of it at least is really worth it. Second version is a bit, but it's really worth it. Sorry, I'm
Okay.
distracting bad.
No. Thanks for sharing. Other questions, comments? Well, if there aren't, we XKCD. Okay. Thank you, Austin. So and we know that this sort of first draft of it was based on sort of the first 60-ish resources that came out of the first year's
Yep.
brainstorming. We ourselves know about many more than that. So again, fairly high on the group's task is to come up with a good way to add content because we know of gobs more content that needs to be in there, and so working through that is high on the current list of things to do. So
So
anyone in the
is
community
there
who's listening to this who wants to help out, please chip in. Sorry, JB.
No, I was wondering if you're planning to do another kind of a hackathon project on that, Joanna, and maybe ever get whoever crowd to both on the ingestion side and the kind of more the output aspect.
Yeah, definitely. The question is, also, definitely at in Bordeaux. That would definitely be. We used to have Brainhack Global. That's the sister event of Brainhack OHBM. But at some point, I was the only, I think, organizer, and it was a bit hard to keep it up. That would have been another option. Yeah, definitely. Maybe we could even do something in between, yeah, but definitely, yeah. I think that would be a good idea.
Well, meet in Bordeaux and
Yeah, exactly.
hopefully before.
And
Yeah.
it may not be the right brain hack, but definitely the SOBP, Biological Psychiatry, has a brain hack in New York in April-ish. Sometimes a small group of ReproNIm and imaging types are there. So if there's the right folks and the right interest, that's another opportunity.
I will be close to New York in April. That's good.
Woohoo.
Close, closer than now, at least. So
East
good.
Coast or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Great. So thank you all for attending. Next month, December, whatever the first Friday of that is, will be Katie Chang. That will be fun, and we'll hear from her. Thank you all for joining.